Title of my presentation is Food Used as a Sexual Metaphor in Music. Within this presentation, I will be discussing just how many songs have sexual metaphors that are represented through food. I chose to study because I am really into music personally, and I found this to be a very interesting topic to do an in-depth study on. There are just so many songs that have been made that uses food to represent either genitalia, body parts, or sexual acts. And I just felt that it would be very interesting to see what food is used the most to represent these sexual metaphors. Study aims at finding songs that use food for sexual metaphors. I will be analyzing different genres that use sexual metaphors rather the genre be pop, R&B, hip hop, or country. I hope that in analyzing these songs that one genre may use more sexual metaphors than the others. And also, I aim to study which gender uses the most food metaphors in their songs and which food metaphors are most frequently used. And I hope to see the relation between food metaphors and what they represent, whether it be a certain body part, sexual act, or genitalia, as I have said before. For my literature review, I used 3 articles and a website that I got from class and online through Blackboard. All 3 directly applied to my study. Each one brought something different to the table. For the first one, by Spang, which is at the bottom of the slide, she talked about English language Caribbean music and the influences of food, sexuality, and gender on the music. For Bader and Gesualdo, he talked about how women are seen as objects of sexual desire. And then for Hines, he also talked about metaphors that use dessert to describe certain body parts. Also, within my study, I realized that desserts are most popular used to represent women's body parts or even men's body parts. My research questions, I asked which genre of music uses more food metaphors. What type of food is used to represent these sexual metaphors? And do men or women use more sexual metaphors than the other? And then which body part is most referenced? And is it in a loving way or a derogative way? I do think that men will most likely use more sexual metaphors than women. With men, they may use these metaphors in a more derogatory way. I think that desserts will probably be used the most in reference to females' body parts. For my methodology, like source-wise, I chose 40 songs. I tried to even it out between male versus female, but there are more male than really female. Genre-wise, I try to scatter the results out and try to find songs from each genre. Like I said before, pop, R&B, hip-hop, and country. For material instruments, for my study, will be using a table to show some of the songs that I have chosen. I will also be splitting the table into the following: name a song, artist, really female versus male, genre, and the food metaphor being used in the songs. Next, I will use a pie chart and a graph to show the overall results, like which gender used sexual metaphors the most and which genre had the majority of the food metaphors. And to support my findings, I will be using the resources I previously stated and YouTube videos to visually support what sexual metaphor is being represented. Procedure. First, 40 of the most popular songs that uses food metaphors will be chosen. The lyrics will be analyzed from each song to see what exact food metaphor is being used and whether or not the food metaphors involve sexual references. This information will be added to the chart. Second, from the 40 songs that have been chosen, I will compare male artists and female artists and see which gender uses more food metaphors within their songs. Third, once that category has been split, next I will see what genre uses the most metaphors. Example, hip hop, pop, R&B, or country music. For fourth, from here I create graphs that will help in creating visual comparisons to better understand the results that have been found. And then lastly, once all this information has been gathered and all of the food metaphors have been discovered within the lyrics, I will then tally up the most popular food that was referenced. From methodology type of data, first I said qualitative. The reason being is because the resulting data will be qualitative because songs will be analyzed for food metaphors, gender, and genre. Now, although I felt that my study focused mainly around qualitative, I also feel that some of it can be considered quantitative because I will be measuring using charts and percentages to represent which gender uses the most food metaphors and also what genre is most representative. And I felt that it would be better to use numbers to show that. But I do believe that my study is mainly based off of qualitative data. Limitations of the study. With this topic, there might be problems with calculating the data correctly so that each genre and gender are being represented properly. There might be limitations to finding the central food metaphor being used the most amongst the songs. Also, to figure out what the food metaphors actually stand for within the context of the song because each artist may use certain food metaphors in a different way. So it is important to make sure each part of the research is represented properly. Results, I actually have a couple charts. First, I want to start out with the table as I previously stated. As you see, I have split it up amongst song, gender, genre, and metaphor. I actually only took 10 out of the 40 songs to put in a simpler version so that way it'd be easier to understand and read. For my first song, I chose Milkshake, which was by a female. The genre was R&B, and in the song she referred to her breasts. Next, I picked a song called Lollipop, which is by a male. It is in the hip hop genre, and he referred to as genitalia. Next, I chose Tutti Frutti, which is by a male. The genre was rock and roll, so a little alternative. And it spoke of sexuality more so. Another song was Carry Out, which was also by a male. Genre was R&B, and it referred to the women's whole body, like every aspect. And then one more other song I chose was Peaches and Cream because it stood out. It's a little bit more different. It's actually by a male group. In that category, it's also R&B. And for this metaphor, it's actually a sexual act. So I thought that was a little different. And then another song I did was Sugar, which is by a male. And it was considered pop. But instead of it being derogatory, this song was actually endearing because he was referring to a woman and how much he needs that woman in his life. So it had a positive spin rather than the usual sexual connotation. Next, I used a pie chart to represent genre. As you see, hip hop right here was the most popular genre. Next was R&B, and then after that, it was pop, then country. I really didn't find a lot of country songs that did that or had a lot of sexual metaphors within them. Last chart, I did female versus male, or I should say one of my last I did female versus male. Um, for this one, this shows that there were less female than males that use a sexual metaphor in their songs. And then for my last one, for a sexual metaphor, and really the genitalia was mostly used, as you can see right here, and then next was body parts right here, and then lastly was sexual act, which is a little bit smaller than the rest. Overall, men use more sexual metaphors. The most popular type of food used for desserts to represent men and women's body parts and/or genitalia. Hip hop seemed to be the genre that used the most sexual metaphors in a negative connotation. It was men use a lot more food metaphors than women, and then typically they use metaphors to represent women's private area, breast, or butt. And women, when mentioning metaphors, more often focused on their own bodies rather than men's bodies. And after doing this study, it just reconfirms how much we rely on sexual metaphors in order to emphasize what is exactly trying to be relayed. I think society has a huge influence on that. That's social construction. And it is easier to do so through food metaphors because it leaves a bit of mystery as to what exactly the artist was referring to. Thank you.